Morning. So just to peel back the curtain a little bit on the process of how the Preach series here work, usually we'll have a discussion as elders and kind of come up with some vague ideas, and then Hugh kind of puts some meat on the bones and he'll send around like a document giving some ideas and things. And when he sent around this thing, well, I'd like to do a series on Proverbs, I was quite excited because I was reading through a study on Proverbs at the time, and it's a book of the Bible that I love. And I sort of scrolled down and be like, I hope I'm preaching in this series. My excitement was somewhat dulled when I saw that my name was next to the title, The Fool. So I'm trying not to read too much into it. Hopefully I'm not speaking too much from experience, although I did find I did have some experience. But what is a fool? In general, I think it's a word that we might throw around, or similar words that we might throw around quite frequently. But I turned to Google to see what a general definition of fool is, and here's what Google has to say. I was going to try and cover it up by saying I looked at the Oxford Dictionary, which is technically what Google is giving you, but I'll be honest with you. So fool, according to Google, is a word with multiple meanings, generally referring to a silly or unintelligent person lacking good judgment, or a professional jester who entertains royalty. Foolish means lacking good sense or judgment. A foolish person is someone who consistently demonstrates a lack of good sense, poor judgment, or irrational behavior. And the main Google result for foolish behavior was a Rod Stewart album, so I didn't get much from that. But these meanings kind of fit the idea of fool that I had in my head, and I think it's the kind of the image of a fool that we are presented by the world in general. It's kind of a silly, maybe clumsy, kind of funny character. The sort of, you want one in every friend group. They're the one that are kind of the butt of all jokes, don't take things too seriously. We can laugh at them, but they're good fun to have around. But the passage we're looking at this morning, which is Proverbs 26, paints a very different picture. The Bible, Proverbs 26, Solomon does not see the fool as a light-hearted, slightly entertaining, bit silly person. The Bible is pretty clear that this is serious business. So what does the Bible have to say about it? Now, before we read Proverbs 26, I think the negative characters in Proverbs, so we've been looking at these kind of caricatures of different people that Proverbs presents. And it's very easy when we deal with the negative ones, the sluggard, the fool, to look at it through a window. We're like looking at these other people. We're like, how terrible it must be to be a sluggard or a fool. But Proverbs, I believe, is written as a mirror, not a window. So every time you start to think, look at that person over there, they're very foolish. Put away the window, bring out the mirror. Look for, I'm not suggesting that you are all fools, but these are all things that we can tend towards. And the more you start to read Proverbs through the window, the more you need to get the mirror out. So let's have a read. We're in Proverbs 26. Like snow in summer or rain in harvest, honor is not fitting for a fool. Like a fluttering sparrow or a darting swallow, an undeserved curse does not come to rest. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the backs of fools. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes. Sending a message by the hands of a fool is like cutting off one's feet or drinking poison. Like the useless legs of one who is lame is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. Like tying a stone in a sling is the giving of honor to a fool. Like a thorn bush in a drunkard's hand is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. Like an archer who wounds at random is one who hires a fool or any passerby. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Do you see a person wise in their own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for them. A sluggard says, there's a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming the streets. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. A sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He is too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. A sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 people who answer discreetly. Like one who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel not their own. Like a maniac shooting flaming arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbor and says, "I was only joking." Without wood, a fire goes out. Without a gossip, a quarrel dies down. As charcoal to embers and as wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome person for kindling strife. The words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to the inmost parts. Like a coating of silver dross on earthenware are fervent lips with an evil heart. Enemies disguise themselves with their lips, but in their hearts they harbor deceit. Though their speech is charming, do not believe them, for 7 abominations fill their hearts. Their malice may be concealed by deception, but their wickedness will be exposed in the assembly. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. A lying tongue hates those it hurts, and a flattering mouth works ruin. So now, before we start thinking about the types of behavior or traits that might mark out a fool or make a person foolish, the chapter starts by warning us, above all things, we should not be honoring fools. Now, there's some pretty strong language here about fools, and I think, Solomon's done that on purpose. As I mentioned, we can easily slip into this idea that a fool is kind of silly, light-hearted, just a bit kind of the opposite of seriousness, but Solomon does not want us to miss that this is pretty serious. Foolish behavior, being a fool, honoring fools, is not something to mess around with. So let's go back to the start again. We read, like snow in summer or rain in harvest, honor is not fitting for a fool. Like a fluttering sparrow or a darting swallow, an undeserved curse does not come to rest. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the backs of fools. Like tying a stone in a sling is the giving of honor to a fool. So a sling is something that's designed to throw a stone a great distance. So if you tie the stone in it, you're completely defeating the purpose. A bit like pressing your accelerator and brake pedal on the car at the same time. It's 2 things that do not work together. Now, this probably seems obvious at first. I doubt many of us have walked up to someone after they've done something very stupid and gone, "Well done. I give you honor as a fool." Like, I don't think we're doing that. But it's very easy for us to honor fools in other ways. The world around us is subtly getting us to honor fools, giving them our time, giving them our attention, listening to people. And you might not think, when you listen to someone once, you might not think, "I'm going to take that advice." But the more you give fools time, the more you let them speak into you, the more you are going to take on board what they are saying. Social media algorithms are based on clicks and popularity, not wisdom. So it's very easy to spend your time watching fools. It's very easy for your feeds to fill up with foolish words and foolish behavior. News cycles want controversy, which gives airtime quite often to fools and foolish people and foolish words, which also can lead to real power being given to foolish people. So it's very easy to spend a lot of time watching and listening to fools. And that is honoring fools. Solomon is warning us here that we need to deal with fools very differently. So we come to verses 4 and 5. "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes." Now this is the first page of how to discredit the Bible. If you're coming at a Christian to argue that the Bible is silly, this is where you start. 2 verses right next to each other that completely contradict each other. Because, of course, we don't live in a world with proverbs like, "Too many cooks spoil the brew," and "Many hands make light work." You know, that sort of thing doesn't happen in our Western wisdom. There are contradicting proverbs. There are different things that need to be done at different times. And Solomon is presenting 2 potential approaches to a fool. Verse 4 tells us that sometimes they need to be ignored. George Bernard Shaw once said, "Don't wrestle a pig, you both get dirty, and the pig likes it." Mark Twain put it like this: "Never argue with an idiot. They will drag you down to their level and beat you on experience." But Solomon also presents an alternative approach. In verse 5, he says that sometimes they need to be challenged. Sometimes foolish behavior needs to be stopped. Foolish words need to be corrected. But either way, Solomon is very clear. You can ignore them, you can challenge them, but you do not listen to them. You do not give them space in your head. Do not give weight to their advice. Ignore, challenge, but do not honor. So who are you honoring with your attention? Who do you look to? Who are you listening to? What sort of people is YouTube and Instagram and whatever else is out there? I'm losing track. What's coming up on your feed? Are you clicking just what comes up on your feed because it's there? Or are you thinking about who you're listening to? Are you surrounded mostly by fools? Do you have wise friends to help keep you wise and avoiding foolish behavior? Because it's a subtle and slow change, but you will be changed and affected by the people you listen to. If those are wise, good people, you will be changed for the better. If you are giving a lot of time to foolish words, then you will be changed for the worse. So, if we know that we are to avoid giving honor to fools, how do we spot a fool? Proverbs 3 gives us 4 traits. I'm going to talk about 3 of them. One of them is they are a sluggard, they are lazy. Hugh did a great job of taking us through the dangers of sloth and being lazy a few weeks ago, so I will not go there again. But the 3 that I'm going to talk about this morning is that fools are untrustworthy and unreliable. They are quarrelsome and meddling, and they are deceptive or hypocritical. So we read about the fact that fools are not to be trusted in verses 6 to 12. It says, "Sending a message by the hands of a fool is like cutting off one's feet or drinking poison. Like the useless legs of one who is lame is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. Like tying a stone in a sling is the giving of honor to a fool. Like a thorn bush in a drunkard's hand is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. Like an archer who wounds at random is one who hires a fool or any passerby. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Do you see a person wise in their own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for them." Take it easy, Solomon. I think there's a few words in here that to our sensitive Western ears were like, "Ooh, careful." I think a few publishers now would have sent it back to the author and gone, "Is there a nicer way you can say this, Solomon?" But Solomon is not mincing his words because, as I've already said, this is serious business. And if he shocks you, that's what he wants to do. Because he wants to shock us out of this idea that the fool is to be laughed at and giggled with, and get us back onto this idea that the fool is to be avoided and ignored or challenged. I've lost track. The Message does try and tame things a little bit. It says, instead of the useless legs of one who is lame, it describes a proverb in the mouth of a fool as a wet noodle. Equally useless. So we're not to trust what foolish people say because they are untrustworthy. The same way that you would not give a drunk person a knife or a sword, because that will end up with people getting hurt. If you trust a fool, if you give them responsibility, it's going to end up with people getting hurt. It's not always easy or obvious to spot a fool in this way, because fools think they know a lot, and sometimes, often, they do. But there is a difference between knowing stuff and being wise. My son Jacob loves football and is always coming to me to practice, and he wants me to help him improve. And I've discovered, I'm not a massive football fan, but I've discovered from playing football a lot when I was young, that I can talk about football a lot. And I can give him quite a lot of good tips. If you heard me talking to him when he's playing football, you'd think, oh, this guy's probably a pretty good player. The problem comes when I've explained something to him, and he goes, I don't really get it. Can you show me? No, I can't. I can talk the talk, but I cannot walk the walk. And it's like that with clever fools. They can quote all sorts of clever philosophies or arguments or nice-sounding quotes, but knowing Proverbs does not make us wise. We need to know how to apply them. As we've already seen with verses 4 and 5, we need to know when to challenge a fool, when to ignore one. My favorite quote on this topic is, I heard it from Brian O'Driscoll, but I'm pretty sure he was quoting someone else. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put one in a fruit salad. There is a right time. We need to know when to apply the things we have learnt. Knowledge is good. I'm a teacher. It would be very strange for me to stand up here and say, don't try and know anything. But we also need to apply knowledge with wisdom. I think the challenge, and I think why fools like to just know stuff and spout it without actually having to think about how to apply it, because the wisdom part is quite difficult. It's tricky to know when is the right time. Not so much with a tomato and a fruit salad, but when do we challenge fools? When do we ignore them? And Paul has some very good advice for us on this in 1 Corinthians. He says, now about food sacrificed to idols, we know that we all possess knowledge, but knowledge puffs up, while love builds up. Those who think they know something do not yet know as they ought to know. But whoever loves God is known by God. So a great place to start is applying knowledge with love. Again, I'm going to go back to verses 4 and 5. Is it more loving to ignore a fool and leave them to it? Or is it more loving to the fool and those that behavior is going to affect to challenge it, to say something, to stop them? Now, wisdom is more complicated than this, but it's a great place to start. It is my strong opinion that if you are applying what you know through a lens of love to those around you, you're not going to get much wrong. So we need to be careful with who we trust with things we know, things that need to be done. We can't be tricked by clever words. As Solomon says, fools are wise in their own eyes. They are not going to say to you, don't trust me, or don't listen to me. We have to be the ones who are alert and discerning. But, as I've already told you, this warning is not about looking through the window, just about looking through the window and spotting foolish behavior and those who are untrustworthy and those who are unreliable. It is time to be self-aware and get out the mirror. Are we unreliable in any areas of our lives? Are you the person that gets told things always start half an hour before they actually do, just to make sure that you are there on time? Are you the person who people tend to come to as a last resort if they need a favor, because when they've asked in the past, you have not come through? Now, obviously, we all make mistakes. And I'm not suggesting that if you have been late once, that is foolish behavior. But, like the dog returning to vomit, the fool keeps doing it. And we need to be careful. We need to watch out if the odd mistake starts to become a habit. It might become 2 or 3 times when someone asks you to do something and you totally forgot. And that starts to become a trend and then normal behavior for you. So fools are not to be trusted. They are also quarrelsome and meddling people. And Solomon talks about this in verses 17 and 20 to 22. Like one who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel not their own. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without a gossip, a quarrel dies down. As charcoal to embers and as wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome person for kindling strife. The words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to the inmost parts. Getting involved in disputes that are not your concern will cause strife. It is almost certainly not going to calm the situation down. It is almost certainly not going to make things better. Now, this is not necessarily something we would consider foolish behavior, and probably not something we've thought of as certainly as positive behavior, but again, we're seeing how important to Solomon it is that we recognize the dangers of foolish behavior and how multifaceted it can be. It's not just someone who trips over a lot. Solomon says, whoever meddles in a quarrel not his own is like one who takes a stray dog by the ears. And I spent some of my childhood growing up in Nepal, and there are stray dogs everywhere in Kathmandu, which is the capital city. That's where we lived. And you get pretty good at making sure the dogs stay away from you. Sometimes it's just a kind of, and they'll run off. Sometimes the dogs are a little bit braver, and you've got to pretend to pick up a stone and throw it. Sometimes you've actually got to throw it. But ultimately, it's about keeping the dogs away from you, because they are diseased, and they are violent, and they are nasty, and you've just got to keep them away. What you never do is go closer and grab them, because if you grab one, another one's going to join in, but you're probably also not going to grab it before it's got its teeth around your hands. It is a terrible idea, and the closer you get, the more you are putting yourself in danger. That is rushing into a quarrel, not your own. Taking a little step forward and be like, ooh, what are they talking about? Ooh, sounds heated. Ooh, do you know what, actually? And then you're getting bitten. And this is human nature. We are a nosy species as humans. How often have you been in slow-moving traffic? So this happened to me last Sunday. We were driving to my wife's aunt's for dinner, and the A12 was moving really slowly. I was like, what's happened here? And we got to a point in the road where there was a really old classic car broken down on the side of the motorway. Out of the way, not blocking any traffic, AA recovery vehicle there. They're fine, they're being dealt with. And as soon as we got past it, traffic started moving normally again. Because everyone's slowing down and going, ooh, what's happening there? Or on the other side of the carriageway, you're driving along, there's a crash over there, and everyone's going, oh, what's happened there? Ooh. And then everyone starts moving again. Because we like to know what is going on. And beyond that, we want other people to know that we know what is going on. James, the book of James, is often called the Proverbs of the New Testament, and he warns us of the dangers of an uncontrolled tongue. When we put bits into the mouths of horses, we make them obey us, and we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder, wherever the pilot wants us to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. We have a rule at the school I work at. If a student comes in and starts telling you about something, and then you start to hear words like, apparently, or someone told me, straight away, like, no, stop. Did you see this with your own eyes? And then they're like, oh, no, so-and-so told me. And they heard it from their friend, who heard it from their friend. You're like, no, tell the person who saw it with their own eyes to come and speak to me, otherwise I don't want to know. If you didn't see it with your own eyes or hear it with your own ears, don't discuss it with your mouth. If you wouldn't say it to the person themselves, don't say it to someone else. Solomon is warning us that gossip and getting involved with people's lives is not just harmless chatter. Even a little bit is foolish behavior. A very small spark can lead to a very big fire. like grabbing a stray dog by the ears or messing around with fire near a wood. Gossip is foolish behavior. Because at best, it's a waste of time. Like, why do you need to know all this stuff about other people that is not going to affect your life? Why do you need to pass that on to someone else whose life it is not going to affect? What's the benefit of knowing all this stuff? Is it helpful? Is it building up? Is it knowledge in love? Or is it just knowledge that puffs up? But at worst, there is potential for great hurt. As I've already said, getting involved with a quarrel that you weren't involved in to start with, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to calm the situation down. What arguments do not need is more anger and more argument. They do not need more fuel to the fire. With gossip, what happens when the person finds out that you've been talking about them? That they trusted you with something that 5 other people now know. The application here is pretty simple. We need to mind our own business. We need to resist gossip. If you find yourself listening to gossip, change the topic. Make your excuses and leave. That could be awkward. Could just, they'll be like, why did he just wander off? But it's not going to be as awkward leaving that situation as when the person who you're gossiping finds out that you were adding fuel to the fire. So fools are untrustworthy, they are unreliable, and they are quarrelsome and meddling. And the third trait of a fool that Proverbs 26 warns us about is that a fool is deceptive and hypocritical. Like a maniac shooting flaming arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbor and says, I was only joking. That doesn't sound like a light-hearted and amusing fool, does it? Like a coating of silver dross on earthenware are fervent lips with an evil heart. Enemies disguise themselves with their lips, but in their hearts they harbor deceit. Though their speech is charming, do not believe them, for 7 abominations fill their hearts. Their malice may be concealed by deception, but their wickedness will be exposed in the assembly. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. A lying tongue hates those it hurts, and a flattering mouth works ruin. Again, there's some pretty strong language here from Solomon describing the dangers of being foolish and being deceptive. God is a God of truth. He hates lies and deceptions. Someone who loves lies and deceptions is Satan, our enemy. Now again, I don't think any of us would consider deception to be a good thing. But why is it included here as foolish behavior? Why is it a trait of a fool? And Solomon gives us the answer in verse 27. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Deception usually backfires. We can only keep our true intentions hidden for so long before we let things slip. We forget which version of ourselves we are with that person, and then the 2 people who we behave in opposite ways for are both speaking to us at the same time. Who do we act as? Lies are hard to keep up, and it can be difficult to keep track of who knows what, which version of which story you've told people. But even if we do manage to keep up our deception in front of humans, we can never deceive God. As we've already sung this morning, he knows all our thoughts, all our intentions, and when all is said and done, ultimately our fate is in God's hands. He is going to be the one that judges us. So whatever you think you are going to gain by your deception on earth, it is not going to be worth it in the end. Time for the mirror again. Don't be a fool. Be genuine. Are you everyone's friend when they speak to you, but secretly you're thinking about how to get ahead? How can I play this person off this person? How can I use this to my advantage? If I say the right thing, but then do the opposite when that person moves away. Are there people in your life who you're just perfectly nice to when they speak to you, but when you're speaking to other people about them, you're sticking the knife in? You're bad-mouthing them behind their backs. Do you behave differently around different people? Putting on a performance to impress people, get them to like you. That's deception as well. So that's the 3 traits of a fool that Solomon, 3 of the 4. Don't forget not to be a sluggard as well. But what I've talked about this morning, fools are untrustworthy and unreliable. They're quarrelsome and meddling, and they are deceptive people. Now, hopefully this has opened your eyes to the dangers of the fool and moved us away from this worldly idea that the fool is the class clown who we can just laugh at in their silliness. God wants us to grasp the seriousness of being a fool, both in terms of the people we pay attention to, the people we give honor to, but also the decisions we're making in our own lives, the behavior that is creeping in to us based on the choices we make or the choices we don't make. Because all of these things are symptoms of an underlying issue. There is one foolish decision, foolish behavior, that is more dangerous than all of these and is at the root of all of these things. And that is rejecting God. The root of all foolishness and the ultimate foolishness is to reject God. In the Psalms, we read in 2 different Psalms, the fool says in his heart, there is no God. The opposite of foolishness is wisdom. I think the world and Satan wants us to think that the opposite of foolishness is seriousness and being a bit boring. But the opposite of foolishness is wisdom. And wisdom starts with God. Actually, starts and ends with God. Solomon writes in Proverbs, in chapter 9, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So this means that the first step away from foolishness and towards wisdom is to turn to God, to get him at the center of your life. And there is only one way to do that. There is only one man who has ever lived on this planet who was perfectly wise and never foolish. Jesus was always reliable. He was there for his disciples and his friends. If he said something, it happened. If he says something today, it will happen. He was trustworthy. Literally, he said, I am the truth. He was full of knowledge, but he knew when to speak. He knew when to be silent. He was never quarrelsome or meddling in other people's business for his own entertainment or gain. He was consumed by love for his people, never deceiving them, always honest. So as a result, he is worthy of all of the honor we can give and more. We have in Jesus the ultimate example of wise living. But more than that, through Jesus and what he did on the cross, we have the covering for whatever foolishness we have done in our lives. Because it doesn't matter how foolish you've been up to now, or how foolish you're going to be in the half an hour after church finishes, or beyond, Jesus' death means that God looks at us and sees him and sees his wisdom. So we have the path to wisdom by looking at Jesus, but also through what he did for us. Now, this is why Solomon's so serious about foolish behavior and the fool in this chapter, because Satan loves the idea of the light-hearted fool, and that's what he's constantly pushing. Because he doesn't want us to take this seriously, because following God and God's wisdom leads to life. That's what God wants for you, because he loves you more than you will ever understand. But Satan doesn't want this for you. He wants you as far away as possible from the love of God, from a relationship from God, from the life that comes from living in God's wisdom. He wants you to follow the path of foolishness. He wants you to think this is not that big a deal. that it's just something we can laugh at. Because he knows that foolishness leads to death. And he is your enemy, and that's what he wants for you. But choosing God and choosing wisdom leads to life, abundant life. So it's no wonder that Solomon doesn't mince his words in this chapter. He saw both sides of it. He did a lot of wise things. He did a lot of very foolish things as well. And if you don't mind, I'm not going to mince my words either. Stop being a fool. Turn to God. Now, for some of you, that will be for the first time. You have spent your life foolishly rejecting God, but God is a gracious God. And however foolish you've been, however long you have rejected him, denied what he said, ignored God's wisdom, he will forgive you. What Jesus did will cover your foolishness. Now, I'm assuming if you've rejected God up to this point, but you are here or you're watching online, you've started to realize that you are being foolish and you're sick of being foolish. And God would say to you, come to me. Stop being a fool. All you need to do is turn to God and say, I'm sorry. I don't want to be a fool anymore. But for a lot of us here, we're not rejecting God completely. We've accepted him into our lives, but we can easily slip into foolish behavior on a decision-by-decision basis. We all make foolish decisions. That's why we need the mirror as well as the window. We all make decisions that on their own are us rejecting God and his wisdom. But for us as well, there is no amount of foolishness, there is no amount of foolish behavior that Jesus' blood does not cover. There is no amount of foolish behavior that is going to make God say, when you turn back to him, no, I've had enough this time. That was one step too far. And if that wasn't enough, he also says, have my Holy Spirit. If you want to be wiser, if you want to be less foolish, here is a friend that will walk with you and be in you all the time to prompt you and go, is that the best decision? Is that a loving thing to do? Is that wise? If the band could come up. We're going to respond through communion because, as I've said, through Jesus' death and resurrection, he takes our place. He gives us an example of the ultimate wise, loving person. The ultimate wise, loving act was him being on that cross, because that was the only way we could get to God. Whatever foolish decisions we've made, as we take the bread and wine, as we remember the sacrifices Jesus made, the blood he spilled covers all of it. We have in communion a picture of our way back to wise living and the life, the true life that comes through that. So as we take the communion, let's reflect on areas where we may have been foolish. Have you completely rejected God up to this point in your life? Are you the fool that is saying in your heart, there is no God? Or that there is a God, but I know better? Are you honoring fools? Are you listening to? Are you watching? Are you giving too much weight to the words and actions of foolish people? Fill yourself with truth. It starts with this. God's word, and people who are basing what they're saying on God's word. Have you trusted the wrong people? Have people learnt not to trust you? Have you been unreliable? Is your yes not a yes? Have you promised things that have not come through? Are you self-aware enough to notice when you've been foolish, when you're being foolish? Ask for help from God. Accept the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Speak to friends. Ask them to speak into your life. Are you always sticking your nose in other people's business? Do you want to know stuff, and do you want people to know that you know stuff? Whatever it is, Jesus is our ultimate example and is our ultimate path back to wisdom. So as the band starts to play, we've got communion station there, and over there by the prayer banner. Take it in your own time. So just go and get the bread and the wine. Maybe if there are certain things that you want to speak to people about, confess, gather with some other people, search yourself. Hold that mirror up. Am I being foolish? Where am I being foolish? I'm afraid the answer, it doesn't start with am I being foolish? You're being foolish. We're all being foolish. How are we being foolish? Where do we need God's help?